The cursed painting. As an art collector, I've come across many intriguing pieces, each with its own history and character. However, none have captivated me as much as the painting I stumbled upon at a small, dimly lit auction house in Paris. It was a dark piece, both in palette and in atmosphere, depicting a forlorn figure standing in a desolate landscape. The auctioneer introduced it with a hushed reverence, whispering of its rumored curse. The Veil of Shadows, he called it, supposedly painted by an artist who vanished shortly after its completion. Those who had owned it reported strange occurrences, but I dismissed these as mere superstition. My heart raced with excitement as I raised my paddle, sealing my fate with a final bid. The painting arrived at my London townhouse a week later. I hung it in my study, a room filled with the scent of aged books and polished wood. That night, as I admired my new acquisition, a chill crept over me. The figure in the painting seemed to shift, its eyes glinting with a malevolent life. I shook off the feeling, blaming it on the dim lighting and my overactive imagination. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in my house changed. It started with small things, books falling from shelves, whispers in the corridors, and cold drafts despite the warm spring weather. I could no longer dismiss these occurrences as mere coincidence. One evening, as I was cataloging my latest acquisitions, a shadow darted across the room. I spun around, heart pounding, but found nothing. The veil of shadows loomed behind me, the figure's eyes now unmistakably following my every move. A sense of dread settled in my chest. Determined to understand the origin of this curse, I delved into research. The artist, Anton Lefebvre, had indeed vanished after completing the painting. Rumors swirled of a pact with dark forces, his soul trapped within the canvas. Every previous owner had suffered misfortune, fires, financial ruin, and in one case, madness. That night, I dreamt of Lefebvre. He stood in the barren landscape from the painting, his eyes hollow and pleading. "Release me," he whispered, his voice echoing in my mind even as I awoke in a cold sweat. Desperation led me to consult a medium, Madame Dubois, known for her expertise in the supernatural. She arrived, a petite woman with sharp eyes that seemed to pierce through the veil of reality. As she entered the study, she shuddered, her gaze fixed on the painting. "This is no ordinary curse," she said. "The artist's soul is indeed trapped, and it seeks release. But the entity holding him is powerful and malevolent." Madame Dubois conducted a séance that night. Candles flickered, casting eerie shadows as she called upon the spirits. The air grew thick with an oppressive energy, the room's temperature plummeting. The figure in the painting seemed to writhe, its form twisting in agony. Suddenly, Madame Dubois gasped, her eyes rolling back. "You must destroy the painting," she said, in a voice not her own. "Only then can his soul be free." As she spoke, the room shook violently, books flying off the shelves. A deep guttural growl resonated from the painting, and the figure lunged forward, as if trying to escape its confines. Fear gripped me, but I knew what had to be done. Grabbing a nearby poker from the fireplace, I approached the painting. The malevolent presence intensified, pushing me back with an invisible force. With a final, determined effort, I plunged the poker into the canvas. A blood-curdling scream filled the room, the painting bursting into flames. Madame Dubois collapsed, the candles extinguished in a gust of wind. I watched in awe and terror as the flames consumed the painting, the oppressive energy lifting, replaced by an eerie calm. The figure's eyes, once filled with malice, now seemed peaceful. In the aftermath, my house returned to its normal state. The whispers ceased, the cold drafts vanished, and the oppressive feeling lifted. I felt a strange sense of relief, though the experience left an indelible mark on my soul. Madame Dubois, recovering from the ordeal, offered me a final piece of advice. Some art is best left forgotten, buried in the annals of time. Remember this, and tread carefully in your future acquisitions. The Veil of Shadows was no more, and with it the curse that had plagued its owners. But the memory of that haunted painting remains with me, a chilling reminder of the thin line between art and the supernatural. Echoes from the asylum. I had always been drawn to places forgotten by time, where the walls whispered secrets of lives once lived and horrors long past. Abandoned buildings held a certain allure, and none more so than the old Crestwood Asylum. Closed for decades, it was said to be haunted by the spirits of the tormented souls who had once called it home. When Jack, our fearless leader, suggested we explore it, I felt a mix of excitement and dread. We were a group of 5 urban explorers: Jack, Sarah, Tom, Emily, and me, Alex. We had ventured into countless derelict buildings, but Crestwood was different. Stories of ghostly apparitions and inexplicable phenomena surrounded the place, making it a forbidden fruit we couldn't resist. We met at dawn, our gear packed and ready. The asylum loomed in the distance, an imposing silhouette against the morning fog. As we approached, the air grew colder, and an eerie silence enveloped us. The once grand gates stood rusted and partially ajar, as if inviting us into the darkness within. "We're here to document the history," Jack reminded us, his voice steady but eyes betraying a hint of unease. "Stick together and don't touch anything unnecessary." We stepped through the gates, our footsteps echoing in the stillness. The main building rose before us, its windows like empty eye sockets, staring into the void. Pushing open the creaking door, we were engulfed by the smell of decay and abandonment. Inside, the asylum was a maze of narrow corridors and empty rooms. Dust hung in the air, disturbed only by our movements. We began our exploration, documenting the peeling wallpaper, rusted bed frames, and scattered medical equipment. As we moved deeper, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Shadows seemed to dance at the edges of my vision, and faint whispers tickled my ears, just out of comprehension. I glanced at my friends, but no one else seemed to notice. "Let's check the basement," Jack suggested, pointing to a set of stairs leading down. The basement, where the worst atrocities were said to have occurred, held the promise of discovering something truly unique. Descending the stairs, the air grew colder, and the darkness thickened. Our flashlights pierced the gloom, revealing old storage rooms and treatment chambers. In one corner, we found a rusted gurney, straps still intact, and nearby, a cabinet filled with yellowed patient files. As I opened one, a sudden chill ran down my spine. The file detailed the treatment of a patient named Margaret, who had been subjected to electroshock therapy. The final entry mentioned her disappearance under mysterious circumstances. "Guys, look at this!" I called, my voice trembling. The others gathered around, reading the file with growing unease. "Let's move on," Sarah suggested, her voice barely a whisper. "This place is getting to me." We continued through the basement, but the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. The whispers grew louder, almost forming words, and shadows seemed to writhe in the corners of our vision. Suddenly, Emily screamed. We turned to see her pointing at a figure at the end of the hall, barely visible in the dim light. It was a woman, dressed in tattered clothes, her eyes hollow and expression vacant. "Margaret?" I breathed, recognizing her from the file's photo. But how could it be? She vanished decades ago. Before we could react, the figure faded into the darkness, leaving only the echoes of her presence. The air felt charged with an electric tension, and I knew we had to leave. "Let's get out of here," Jack ordered, his usual bravado gone. We turned back, but the corridor seemed to twist and change, leading us deeper into the asylum's labyrinth. Panic set in as we realized we were lost. The whispers had become a cacophony, the voices of the asylum's lost souls surrounding us. Doors slammed shut and the walls seemed to close in, the asylum itself becoming a living entity, intent on trapping us. "We need to stay calm," Tom said, though his voice wavered. "We can find a way out." Desperation drove us onward, but each step felt like we were sinking deeper into the abyss. Finally, we stumbled upon a room that seemed untouched by time. An operating theater with rows of seats and a central table under a large, shattered skylight. As we entered, the whispers ceased, replaced by a suffocating silence. On the table lay the body of a woman, perfectly preserved, her eyes open and staring at us. It was Margaret. Suddenly, the doors slammed shut, and the temperature plummeted. The air grew thick with an unearthly presence, and shadows coalesced into forms around us, the spirits of the asylum's victims. "Why have you come here?" A voice boomed, disembodied and filled with sorrow and rage. "We're just exploring," Jack stammered. "We mean no harm." "You disturb our rest," the voice replied. "You must leave or you will join us." The spirits advanced, their forms becoming more tangible, faces contorted with pain. We backed away, but there was nowhere to go. The room was a trap. In a desperate bid, I grabbed my flashlight and shone it at the spirits. To my surprise, they recoiled, hissing and retreating into the shadows. "Light," I whispered. "They fear the light." We turned our flashlights on full, creating a barrier of illumination. Slowly, we edged toward the door. The spirits held at bay by the beams. With a final burst of energy, we pushed through the door and ran, not stopping until we burst out into the morning light. The asylum stood silent behind us, its dark secrets still hidden within. We had escaped, but the echoes of Crestwood would haunt us forever. The spirits had warned us, and I knew we would never return. Some places are meant to be forgotten, their horrors left undisturbed. As we walked away, I glanced back one last time. In the window, I saw Margaret, her eyes filled with sorrow, watching us leave. The asylum had claimed her, and many others, but it had let us go. The whispers would continue, but we would not be there to hear them. We left Crestwood Asylum behind, but its shadows would follow us, a reminder of the thin veil between our world and the horrors that lie beyond. Room 333. As I stepped into the grand lobby of the old hotel, a chill ran down my spine. The dimly lit chandeliers cast eerie shadows on the faded wallpaper, and the musty scent of aged wood permeated the air. My gaze wandered to the reception desk, where a tired-looking clerk greeted me with a forced smile. "Welcome to the Grand Oak Hotel," he said, his voice hollow. "How can I assist you?" "I have a reservation," I replied, handing him my ID and credit card. He typed away at the ancient computer, his fingers moving with a sluggishness that matched the overall atmosphere of the place. Finally, he looked up, his expression unreadable. "You're in room 333. My heart skipped a beat. Room 333. I'd heard the rumors about it, about the strange occurrences, and the guests who had disappeared without a trace. But I brushed off my unease and followed the clerk's directions to the elevator. As the doors closed behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The elevator creaked and groaned as it ascended, each floor passing by with agonizing slowness. Finally, it stopped, and I stepped out onto the third floor. Room 333 loomed at the end of the hallway, its door slightly ajar as if beckoning me inside. I hesitated for a moment before pushing it open and stepping into the darkness beyond. The room was suffused with an unnatural chill, despite the warmth of the summer night outside. I shivered as I crossed the threshold, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. The furnishings were old and worn, the wallpaper peeling in places to reveal the crumbling plaster beneath. I tried to shake off my apprehension as I unpacked my bags, telling myself that the stories were just that, stories. But as the night wore on, strange things began to happen. I heard whispers echoing through the empty room, faint at first, but growing louder with each passing moment. Shadows danced on the walls, taking on sinister shapes that seemed to leer at me from the darkness. And then, just as suddenly as they had begun, the whispers ceased, leaving behind an oppressive silence. I tossed and turned in bed, unable to shake the feeling of unease that clung to me like a second skin. And then, just as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard it, a soft, plaintive wail that sent shivers down my spine. I sat up, my heart pounding in my chest, and scanned the room for the source of the sound. But there was nothing there, nothing but the oppressive darkness that seemed to press in on me from all sides. And then, as if in response to my fear, the room erupted into chaos. Objects flew off the shelves, the furniture shook violently, and the walls seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. I screamed, my voice lost in the cacophony, and prayed for it to stop. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the chaos ceased, leaving behind a shattered room and a sense of dread that lingered in the air like a bad omen. I stumbled out of the room, my heart pounding in my chest, and made my way to the lobby. The clerk was nowhere to be seen, and the once bustling hotel now seemed eerily empty. Determined to uncover the truth about room 333, I delved deeper into the hotel's history. I discovered that it was built on the site of an ancient burial ground, the restless spirits of which were said to still haunt the premises. Realizing the hotel's dark secret, I knew I had to find a way to appease the vengeful spirits before it was too late. Consulting with a local medium, I learned of a ritual that could put the spirits to rest once and for all. Armed with this knowledge, I returned to room 333, prepared to perform the ritual and lift the curse that had plagued the Grand Oak Hotel for so long. As I began the ritual, the air grew thick with the scent of incense, and an otherworldly energy filled the room. Shadows danced on the walls, and I could feel the presence of the spirits all around me. But I stood my ground, channeling all of my willpower into the ritual, determined to bring peace to the restless souls that dwelled within the hotel's walls. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The air seemed to clear, and a sense of calm descended upon the room. I knew then that the curse had been lifted, and the hotel was finally free from the grip of the vengeful spirits. As I stepped out into the hallway, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. The nightmare was finally over, and the Grand Oak Hotel could once again be a place of rest and relaxation for weary travelers.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing for more content like this.